Divorce in the modern world is no longer rare. Many people grow up in families where their parents have separated, or they themselves have gone through a broken marriage. The promises spoken on a wedding day are sometimes not enough to keep two people together for a lifetime. Life changes quickly. The pressure of work, money, and wounds that accumulate over the years can leave many relationships exhausted. In that reality, the question of faith becomes very practical. How does God see broken marriages today? Not a few people once believed that divorce was simply a sign of selfishness or a lack of patience. But when we look deeply into the lives of many families, the story becomes far more complicated. Some people enter marriage hoping to build a home, yet slowly realize they are living in an environment filled with fear. Arguments no longer stop at words. The atmosphere in the house becomes tense and heavy, sometimes lasting for many years. In situations like these, the question of whether to stay or to leave is no longer simple. Domestic violence is one of the painful realities of our time. It does not always appear in the form of physical blows. Sometimes it is constant hurtful words, control, threats, or long-lasting contempt. The person living in that situation may feel trapped. They once promised before God that they would stay with the other person for life, yet each passing day becomes an act of endurance. In those moments, religious faith can sometimes make the confusion even deeper. Betrayal is another reason many marriages collapse. When trust is broken, it is very difficult for things to return to the way they once were. Some couples try to rebuild, but the wound is too deep. Painful memories return again and again, making it heavy to continue living together. Not everyone has the strength to move beyond that. Many people feel they are living in a relationship where love has disappeared. Emotional and psychological abuse is also a reality that is often overlooked. A person may never raise a hand, yet continually make the other feel worthless. Words like that, repeated over many years, can slowly destroy a person's sense of dignity. When this continues, marriage no longer feels like a place of safety. It becomes a source of exhaustion and pain. In the face of situations like these, many people ask a very direct question: does God truly want someone to remain in suffering for a lifetime? If marriage is sacred, does that mean a person must endure everything, even when it is destroying their life? These questions do not come from rebellion against faith. They come from people who are trying to remain honest with both their belief and the reality of their lives. Many Christian theologians have reflected on this issue for a long time. They remind us that God's ideal for marriage has not changed. Marriage was created to endure, for two people to grow together and face hardship side by side. But they also recognize that the world today is no longer in its original perfect state. Sin, selfishness, and deep wounds have distorted many relationships. Reality shows that not every marriage can be saved. Some couples struggle for years and still cannot find a path forward together. In some situations, staying only deepens the pain. When every attempt at reconciliation has failed, the decision to leave sometimes becomes the final choice to protect a person's life and dignity. From this perspective, the issue is not only about preserving or ending a relationship. It touches a deeper question about how human beings treat one another. Marriage was established to reflect love, respect, and sacrifice. When those things completely disappear, the relationship itself can become the opposite of what it was meant to be. Many people carry a heavy sense of guilt after divorce. They wonder whether they have done something wrong before God. Some feel as if they have failed, not only in marriage, but also in their faith. those thoughts can push them away from spiritual life for many years. Yet when people read the entire Bible carefully, one truth becomes very clear. God enters into the broken stories of human lives. He is not present only in happy families. He is also present in the confusion where people are trying to find their way again. This shows that God does not turn away from those who have experienced divorce. A broken marriage may be a deeply painful chapter in someone's life, but it is not the end of the relationship between a person and God. His mercy is not limited by human failure. Many people who go through such brokenness begin to understand their own weakness more deeply. They learn to see others with greater compassion. Painful experiences can sometimes open the door to a new journey of growth. Even though that road is not easy, it can still lead toward healing. The modern world raises many difficult questions that earlier generations did not often face. Complex situations force people to rethink how faith is lived in real life. Yet in the middle of all those debates, one truth remains unchanged. God does not abandon human beings in the darkest moments of their lives. For this reason, when speaking about divorce in the modern world, the conversation is not only about rules or about right and wrong. It is about real people who are trying to live, to love, and to survive in a wounded world. And even when a marriage comes to an end, the Christian faith still reminds us that God does not walk away from those who pass through that brokenness. Many people, when speaking about religion, immediately think about rules. They believe faith is mainly a list of things that are allowed and things that are forbidden. But when people read the Gospels, they slowly realize that Jesus does not begin with rules. He begins with people. The tired, the broken, the ones who are trying to live in a world that is not easy at all. Looking at the way Jesus meets people, it is easy to see that he often goes toward those whom society looks down on. Tax collectors, those called sinners, those pushed out of the community. He does not stand at a distance to judge them. He sits down, speaks with them, and listens to them. This made many people of that time uncomfortable because they were used to a religion that placed heavy weight on rules and punishment. In the Gospels, Jesus often encounters people who are very confident that they are living according to the law. They know every detail of the religious rules and believe that this is enough to prove their righteousness. But Jesus often brings them to a deeper question, where their hearts truly are. A person may follow the rules very precisely, yet still lack mercy toward others. One of the clearest stories about this appears in the Gospel of John. A woman caught in the act of adultery is brought before a crowd. According to the law of that time, the punishment for her is severe. The people around her hold stones in their hands, ready to throw them. They believe they are defending the law of God. The atmosphere is tense. All eyes turn toward Jesus, waiting to hear what he will say. If he forgives the woman, they can accuse him of opposing the law. If he agrees with the punishment, a life will end before their eyes. It is a moment where the law seems to leave little room for mercy. Jesus does not answer immediately. He bends down and writes something on the ground. That moment of silence makes the crowd wait. Then he says a sentence that is very simple, yet very powerful. "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone." This statement does not deny the law, but it places everyone before the truth about themselves. No one in the crowd can claim to be completely without sin. One by one, they drop their stones and walk away, not because the law disappears, but because they realize that they too are human beings full of faults. In the end, only Jesus and the woman remain standing there. Jesus looks at her and asks, "Has no one condemned you?" When she answers that no one has, he says, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Two things appear together in that sentence. On one hand, he does not treat sin as something normal. On the other hand, he does not destroy a person because of that sin. This story clearly shows how Jesus sees human beings. He does not deny the truth that people can do wrong, but he also does not allow a mistake to become the reason to erase a human life. Between the law and the person, he always opens a path for someone to stand up again. Many people who have failed in their personal lives feel very close to this image. They know what it feels like to be judged, criticized, treated as if they are completely ruined. When they read the Gospels, they see that Jesus does not treat them that way. He sees something others do not see, a person who can still change. This becomes especially meaningful when speaking about brokenness in family life. A failed marriage can make someone feel as if they have destroyed everything. Society sometimes looks at them with suspicion as well. But in the light of the Gospel, the story does not end there. Jesus often stands beside those who carry wounds. He does not deny the seriousness of the choices people make in life, but he also does not turn the past into a permanent sentence. The mercy of God always opens the possibility of a new beginning. When people look through the whole of the Gospels, one thing becomes very clear. Jesus is not trying to create a perfect community made up of people who have never failed. He builds a community of people who know their weakness, yet still want to keep walking forward. For that reason, when it is said that what matters most to Jesus is not the law, it does not mean the law is unimportant. The law helps people understand what is right, but the law is not the final goal. The final goal is that people are healed and find their way back to life. When seen this way, many stories in the Gospels become clearer. Jesus did not come only to repeat rules. He came to touch hearts that are tired, hearts that have failed, hearts that believe their lives have already gone too far. And in his eyes, those people are not defined only by their mistakes, but by the possibility of renewal in the mercy of God. Marriage in the Christian faith is not only a decision between two people. It is seen as a promise made before God, a commitment that two people will walk through life together, not only when things are easy, but also when difficulties appear. This idea sounds very beautiful, but anyone who has lived in marriage knows that reality is far more complex. Two people enter the same home, carrying two different pasts, two different ways of thinking, and sometimes wounds that have not yet healed. As time passes, life begins to test the original promise. Work, money, family responsibilities, and changes in personality slowly place pressure on the relationship. Many couples learn to grow together and move through difficult seasons. They are not perfect, but they are patient. They learn to listen and to correct their mistakes. In those situations, marriage becomes a long journey of growth. But not every story follows that path. Some relationships begin with hope, but gradually become heavy. Arguments repeat themselves. Disappointments accumulate. The distance between two people grows wider. Sometimes both still try, but the effort is not enough to repair the cracks that have grown too deep. Situations like these force people to face a truth that is not easy to accept. Many once believed their love would last a lifetime. When a marriage breaks apart, they do not only lose a relationship, they also lose a part of their confidence in themselves. They begin to ask what went wrong, why everything ended this way. The feeling of failure can sometimes weigh even more heavily than the sadness itself. These questions often lead people back to faith. If God created marriage so that love would last for a lifetime, why do so many marriages never reach the end of the road? This question is not a rejection of God. It is an attempt to understand the meaning of what is happening in human life. When people look into the Bible, they see that God always speaks of marriage as a deep unity. Two people become one and build a shared life together. This is the ideal that faith points toward. Yet at the same time, the Bible also tells many stories about human weakness, broken families, wrong decisions, and painful consequences appear again and again in the history of God's people. This reveals something important. God knows that human beings are not perfect. He did not create a world where every decision leads to a perfect outcome. People are given freedom to choose, and that freedom sometimes leads to mistakes. Those mistakes can affect an entire family, even many generations. In some situations, marriages are healed after very difficult seasons. Two people look back at their mistakes, learn to forgive, and begin again. Stories like these exist and give hope to many people. They show that love can be rebuilt when both are willing to change. But there are other stories as well, marriages that, after many years of trying, still cannot continue. In those moments, separation does not happen because people want to break a promise, but because they no longer see a way to live in a healthy and peaceful way together. Decisions like these always carry deep pain. When a marriage ends, many people feel that God has turned away from them. They feel as if they have moved too far from His original plan. But when the entire story of the Bible is considered, it becomes clear that God does not abandon people even when they fail. In many stories, God continues to work through very imperfect people. They make mistakes, they fall, yet their story continues. This shows that the relationship between God and human beings does not depend on human perfection. This truth is especially important for those who have experienced brokenness in marriage. One chapter of life may come to an end, but life itself does not end there. The Christian faith always speaks about the possibility of beginning again, not by denying the past, but by learning from it. God is not concerned only with the structure of a relationship. He cares about the people living inside that relationship. A marriage may break apart, but the human heart can still be healed. That healing sometimes comes slowly, but it can still happen. When seen in this way, the story of marriage and divorce becomes deeper than a debate about rules. It becomes the story of the human journey, a journey filled with hope, mistakes, repair, and learning. And in that journey, God does not stand outside as a distant observer. Even when a promise is broken, God continues to seek the human heart. What He desires to save is not only a social structure called marriage. What He desires to touch is the heart of a person. And when a heart finds truth, humility, and faith again, the journey with God can still continue, even if the road behind it has known moments of brokenness.